The UEFA Champions League semi-final just ending with Inter Milan advancing at the expense of Barcelona. That to come later in the show. Details, I mean. We are less than 2 days from the start of the highly anticipated Wren Nephew Jamaica Premier League playoffs. Unfortunately, a lot of the build-up has been overshadowed by the controversy concerning regular season champions Mount Pleasant and their alleged breach of transfer and overseas player quota regulations as lodged by reigning champions Cavalier. But following a lengthy wait, the Jamaica Football Federation's Competitions Committee finally communicated a ruling earlier on Tuesday. The committee has fined the St. Anne-based club 25,000 Jamaican dollars, that's just under US $160, for breaching an aspect of the foreign player quota rule. But they were found not guilty of the more serious charges relating to the alleged improper transfer of 5 Haitian players, including forgery and falsification of documents and corruption. Here is the letter from the JFF addressed to Mount Pleasant. It says this. Please note that Article 6.1, well, let's just go to the player contract has expired close to the end of the transfer window. And 2, the player contract was terminated close to the end of the transfer window. The Competitions Committee have in its possession all the termination letters and the international transfer certificate, which indicates the players were duly transferred to the Mount Pleasant Academy. What is clear is that the breach was done by the players' former club and not Mount Pleasant FA. So that is the critical part of that release issued by the JFF's Competition Committee. They continued joining us on the show to discuss all things JPL as we approach this crucial juncture of the season. As the CEO of the Professional Football Jamaica Limited, Owen Hill. Owen, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. We were hoping to have you on earlier in the week, as in yesterday, but there were some loose ends to tidy up, and now you're willing to come and face us on the show. So given what we have seen in recent days, where there was a lot of uncertainty about the Cavalier complaint, satisfied that things are in order now and ready to roll ball?
Definitely. I mean, quite unfortunate. I mean, given the juncture that we are very close to the start of the playoff. But I'm happy that, this matter has been settled. And now we can look forward to what is to come in the playoffs, because we don't want to overshadow the best part of the season with, one of these situations that it's unfortunate, but definitely shouldn't be one that characterizes the season. So I'm happy that a ruling has finally been submitted by the Competitions Committee. I suspect it's a difficult decision after reviewing all the facts. They had to get everything right. And we are now ready to roll. We want to promote and we want to get the show going.
Yeah, we have been saying from Friday on this show, Owen, that it was a little bit disconcerting for us as journalists to be not hearing anything at all from the JFF, because to be quite honest, the proper thing to do would have been to issue a release, to put things on the table to say that this is being done and the issue is being investigated and so on. So how disappointed are you then as the tournament organizer, if you want to call it that the Competitions Committee handled this in a manner that just didn't appear communicative to us? Not only us, but the public.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I was in the same position as you were. So I was definitely, in dark or in limbo as to what to do. I mean, several persons kept calling. The clubs kept asking because we needed to communicate, or sponsors. So it's not just the actual complaint that is an issue. I mean, when you think about the overall organization, it has ripple effects. So again, it was difficult managing the entire process, as would have been for the entire season. And I think so far, good sense prevailed, if you want to say that. Good sense prevailed, and we are now 2 days, match day -2, for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, a couple of things here, Owen. First of all, just on a point of clarity, I know a few seasons ago Mount Pleasant had been listed as one of the sponsors of the league. Is that still the case?
Well, Mount Pleasant Football Academy is a different organization than Mount Pleasant Academy. So that's the first distinction that we need to make.
Explain that distinction for the public.
All right, so the football academy is the actual football club, while the academy, based on the rules and the articles and what they have in their company filings, that's the overall organization. So that organization had sponsored the league since its inception. I mean, the restart, that is, when, you know, we
After
had that,
COVID.
after that COVID period.
Yes.
And it wasn't necessarily a cash sponsorship. It was really, it was an internal arrangement that allowed for them to get entitlements and, you know, whatever payments to the club, you wouldn't have been receiving those payments. So you get some entitlements to, you know, promote your academy setup, and that would have allowed for you to be given these entitlements under what would have been the academy, Mount Pleasant Academy. But Mount Pleasant Football Academy, which is the actual club that plays in the Premier League, they were not the ones who sponsored the league.
Is that agreement still in place?
No, that's an agreement that ended last year. So for all intents and purposes, they are not a sponsor of the league.
Yeah. So from your standpoint, there would be absolutely no merit to the claim that, you know, we've heard quite a bit since this issue popped up, that, hey, Mount Pleasant will get off because this is what happens when you have a sponsor being a team in the league.
Yeah, well, that's rubbish. I'd, you know, just easily, flatly reject that. I mean, that's never the case. Again, there's an entire process that governs how the league works. The Jamaica Football Federation, through its competitions committee, they are the governing body. They adjudicate on competition-related matters. The Professional Football Jamaica Limited is the commercial body that provides those exposure and commercial opportunities for the clubs in return for whatever incentives, payments, etc. So there's an entire system that governs how the league works, obviously vetted by CONCACAF and FIFA regulations. So anything that's untoward or anything that's in breach definitely would need to actually go all the way up in the chains. Yeah. So CONCACAF, FIFA, wherever it is. So whatever happens, I would say, would have to be vetted, and how it works is definitely based on some rules of engagement that everybody knows from the start.
Yeah. When we spoke with Yoni Epstein yesterday, one of the things he said on the show is that a ruling such as this, based on the regulation, should have taken 72 hours.
Correct.
3 days. Can you shed any light on why this took close to, if not over, a week to arrive at a decision?
Well, that's a difficult question. That's a difficult question. Why? Because I wasn't really in the process. I mean, based on where I sit, I am not. And for obvious reasons, I mean, you don't want to have any conflict of interest or anything of the sort. The reason why it took so long, I suspect it's a delicate case. The facts needed to have been arranged, a hearing needed to be had, a committee needed to have been met. So there are several things that would have allowed for, and again, by no means am I saying it should have taken this long. So I'm not abdicating anybody from the responsibilities of, you know, swift and just action. However, you want to make sure that you get it right, because it had implications that would have affected not just the league, but the federation, the players. So you don't want to just rush and make a decision just on a whim. You wanted to get all the facts. I suspect that's what happened.
Yeah, and there was a suggestion as well that maybe the PFJL should have held the final round of matches until the matter was cleared up. Of course, that didn't happen. The matches went ahead on Sunday. Can you shed some light on why that was the case? Why did you not suspend those matches until the matter was cleared up?
Again, I mean, we have zero autonomy in suspending games. We would recommend, but again, the competitions committee are the ones who adjudicate on matters of such.
And that's the committee that was making the decision?
Correct. Yeah. That's the committee that's mandated to deal with any competition-related matter. And this was a competition-related matter. So suspending the games wouldn't have been our jurisdiction. Again, it would have the requirements would have been the Jamaica Football Federation through its competitions committee would need to hand that down as a mandate, and they thought that everything was okay. They were doing their checks. The games needed to have gone on, and then the truth is we're in a time constraint right now. I mean, had it been probably earlier in the season, then things may have been deferred, etc. But because we need to ensure that the competition finishes on or before a certain date in May, and that's a CONCACAF mandate, then we're now working backwards from that date.
Yeah. So the PFGL, given everything that you just said, did not make that recommendation to hold the games?
No, we didn't. We didn't. Because really, we didn't want to influence any outcomes. We didn't want to try to force the hand of anybody. Again, the implications of such is great. So, I mean, you heard what the fines were. I know that there are different, quarters saying what they feel about the fines, etc. But the truth is there are some rules that govern the engagement, and the competitions committee thought that this was the necessary thing, and the rulings are out, and we're happy that it hasn't affected too many people and the pairings, etc. So we look forward to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I know we really want to get to the playoffs and the quarterfinals and speak about all the excitement, but I do have one more here. Throughout the course of the process, we did hear that CONCACAF had taken an interest in this matter.
Yeah.
Can you confirm, and from what angle they are taking an interest in? Is it the overall situation or specific aspects?
To be honest, I really can't tell you because, again, it's not in our jurisdiction. No, I'm telling
Lads,
you straight.
I feel like we have the wrong man.
No, I think you have the right man. You have the right man. But in terms of CONCACAF being involved, CONCACAF is the central body governing football within our region. So if there's a matter that affects any federation or administration within the region, I definitely think CONCACAF would want to have a look at it. But in terms of how far it would have escalated, I really am unable to tell you that.
Yeah, fair enough. I tell you what, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This man has a political career in the future. Speak about diplomacy, and he is the man. All right, let's talk about the playoffs.
Yeah.
They start
a little easier.
A little easier, and a little more exciting as well. But yeah, the quarterfinal matches, first leg on Thursday. What can we expect? Because we have come to expect great football, great entertainment, massive crowds for JPL playoff matches. Are we to expect the same this time around?
I would say yes. Again, this is what we live for. This is what the players, the fans, this is what the sponsors, everybody live for. So the Ray & Nephew Jamaica Premier League playoff series and super finals, literally we're pulling out all stops to ensure that whatever blips happened in the earlier season, we're able to overcome those. So I was literally at the venue, about 2 hours ago, just making sure that we're putting in the necessary steps, organizational wide information being distributed and disseminated to the clubs, and then just making sure that we start with a good show. Yeah. It's interesting because, one, the teams who are there, I think they will immediately give a good boost to the overall product. Montego Bay versus Tivoli. Tivoli has always been there knocking on the door. They had an up and down season kind of, but you can't count out Jerome Waite. He's living for these moments. He's just wanting to do what he does best, upset people. While Montego Bay, I would say, the hottest property in the Jamaica Premier League, really, really top tier turnaround in their organization, and they travel now into Kingston with a little bit of fire under their skins because they're saying, well, we just had the top 2 spot being clinched by a different team. So it's exciting. Cavalier, the defending champions, they're sitting right there just keeping it very steady, do what they do best. And then Portmore, again, one of the more consistent teams over the years. So those four teams and the matchups, I suspect it's going to be a really, really cracking evening. And then, Sabina Park, just, I don't know, there's something magical about the place. The goals that come, the type of play that you see. I don't know if it's a commentary that they're hearing from you guys, but something just is special about Sabina Park. Some of the best goals scored, the best football is played, the quality of the pitch is good. I think it's going to be a really nice evening of football.
Yeah, the cricket venue brings football to life, no doubt about that, in a wonderful way. And I hope you can answer this one for me. I hope it's not outside your jurisdiction. But the final on the 23rd of May, that's Labor Day, that's
Super final.
Holiday in Jamaica. What was the thinking behind having the final on a holiday, a Friday, as opposed to the usual Sunday?
Well, that question I definitely can answer.
Oh, Lord, thank you.
Again, I spoke to it earlier. We had a decision to make, again, with constraints in front of us. We needed to end the league by a certain time. That's the first thing. Secondly, we also knew that Jamaica, the national team, has an engagement in England, the Unity Cup. So when we had those discussions with the stakeholders, when we thought through what was the best approach, then, you know, genius idea again, I would take credit for it. But Chairman Williams will also take credit for it. So we had a discussion, we thought, well, why not just have it on the Labor Day? It's a holiday, people will be out and about, you have enough time to, you know, engage, and it gives us a nice way to cap off the season. If we had it on the Sunday, it would have cut it really close. Because the players are local-based players who are expected to be in that Unity Cup. So
Unity Cup starts 27th of May.
Correct.
Which would be like the Tuesday or so?
Literally, it would be the Tuesday. So what would have happened is the players would have, the top players obviously now would, you know, not make the trip.
Yeah.
Because again, it's 12-hour flight. You know, you want to make sure that you get rest, kick about, etc. So we thought about it. And yeah, we thought that May 23rd, the Super Finals is going to be epic. Yeah. We thought that we can make, you know, a nice little shebang out of it. It's Memorial Day weekend in the United States as well. So when we look at the overall calendar, we're like, all right, let's do something different, because that's what we do. You know, we find opportunities. That's really our job.
Yeah.
Look at the opportunities, forge pathways, and create new horizons. And I think that, you know, having this on the Labor Day, it will give us a nice little bounce, and the players will get an opportunity to bring their families out, and people will get a chance to show up and support. And again, National Stadium, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and I guess you wouldn't want to comment on this, but a super final between Cavalier and Mount Pleasant would be something special, given what we've seen over the past week.
No, definitely. I think I think it's a nice little rivalry building. It's like a
rivalry.
Yeah, I would think so. It's
a lot more. Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, it's like a Inter AC. It's like a Man U Liverpool. It's one of those love-hate relationships that even the fans, when you hear the fans talk about it, they're like, yeah, man, I want that. And, you know, Gould versus Speed and Tapper versus, and I think it's a nice little opportunity to build out the ecosystem of football in Jamaica. And I don't want us to kind of gloss over it, because this is what we need. Yeah. This is what our supporters need. This is what the sponsors need. This is our football product. I tell you, it's the best in the Caribbean. It's the best in the Caribbean. The Jamaica Premier League, it's the best in the Caribbean. I tell you that. And I feel like it gives us the opportunity to see what is on show, the talent that's here. When you look at how the coaches have improved, when you look at how tight, you know, the standings are, there's really no separation too much. It makes for, you know, the future looking bright. And I think, you know, that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. We're trying to build everything together, you know, piecening it. Obviously, it's going to be difficult, and it has been a very difficult road. But for sure, we're forging ahead, and we look forward to the Super Finals on May 23rd, Labor Day.
All right, Chief, great having you on the show.
Hold on, just one more thing. Let me say one more thing. It's the Super Finals, and we're going to be honoring Not Nice this time around. Not Nice is going to be our honoree for the Super Finals. And when Not Nice is honored, you know, a few of his friends will be coming. Okay. A few of his friends. So if you know anything about Not Nice, and you know anything about his friends, they're all from the Empire over by Portmore. You know.
You know, I have some questions there too, but we're out of time.
All right, so I'll come back to answer all those questions, the ones that I can answer for sure. But make sure that you're present. The playoff series, Rare Nephew Super Finals. We look forward to it.
Back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.